Hello, my name is Feray, and this is the executive presentation for the installation and configuration of an intrusion detection system and an intrusion prevention system into robot parsing network. We will also cover the update of the pfSense firewall software to the latest version. Here is the agenda for today's meeting. First, we will review the executive summary, followed by a review of the system configuration with the added new interface, Internet. Next, we will discuss the connection of the router firewall to the Internet. After that, we will go over the installation and configuration of the Snort intrusion detection and prevention system. Next, we will review Snort logs and review suspicious activity on the Untrusted and DMZ networks. Once Snort is configured, we will review firewall rules to block FTP traffic to the DMZ network. Next, we will have a short video demonstration of firewall rules and a description of how to effectively use Snort. And last, we will review recommendation on how to improve network security by using newly installed IDS and IPS. As a result of our previous recommendations to robot parse incorporated system security, we have updated the router firewall to the latest versions of pfSense and have also installed and configured an intrusion detection system and intrusion prevention system called Snort. And these two systems combined will help protect your production server and web server from potential threats as well as help monitor the whole network. Now let's talk about the updated system configuration. As you can see in the diagram above, we have added a new interface called Internet network to the router firewall. And this new interface will allow us to update and maintain the pfSense firewall software as well as install the Snort IPS and IDS. Note, this new interface can be disabled, enabled as needed. We will discuss this new interface in detail later. Alright, let's talk about how we connected the router firewall to the Internet. The screenshot above on the left is the VirtualBox settings page for the router firewall network tab. First, we selected adapter 4 and enabled the network adapter. And this allows us to select NAT as the attached to interface. You can leave everything else to the default, but I recommend that you click on the Advanced tab and note the MAC address of the interface. Note, Snort is a memory-intensive program, and hence we increase the available base memory to 6 GB. You can see the selection in the screenshot to the right. Once we added the new VirtualBox interface for the router firewall, we started the router computer and Kali Trusted PC. And the above screenshot shows the default route for this network. And this IP address is what we will enter into our web browser Firefox to bring up pfSense. You can see this on the next slide. Entering the default route into the URL of Firefox will bring up the pfSense login page. And this will enable us to access all the features of pfSense using GUI. Note, the first time you log into pfSense, it will request you to update the default password. And we recommend using a strong password as described in our last recommendations. Also, the Firefox web browser may suggest you save the password for this URL, and we strongly recommend against saving passwords in your web browser. Once you have logged into pfSense, select Interfaces, then Assignments. This will bring up the page shown above. As you can see above, the MAC address of the new router firewall network interface is shown in the network port drop-down box and is assigned to OPT2, and we will change this in a minute. Once the interface is assigned, we selected the new interface from the interfaces drop-down and enable it. We changed the name of the interface from OPT2 to Internet and set the IPv4 configuration type to DHCP. Once that was done, we click Save and apply changes. After assigning our new interface, pfSense recognized the new interface and we could see our update on the router firewall home screen as shown above. Notice that the new Internet interface shows DHCP an address of 10.0.5.15/24. Now that the new interface is enabled, we can update to the latest version of pfSense. We did this by going back to the pfSense status dashboard page on the Kali Trusted PC and selecting Update. As shown above, you can see we updated to the latest released version 2.6.0. Now it is time to install and configure Snort. To install Snort, we selected Package Manager from the System drop-down. From there, we selected Available Packages and scroll down to Snort. Click on the Install button to the right of the Snort package, installs it to pfSense. Once the installation process is complete, Snort will be available under the Services drop-down. In order to maximize the effectivity of Snort, we created a Snort account at snort.org. Once the account is created, you can obtain an Oinkmaster code which will enable you to download additional rule sets for free. In the screenshot, you can see where we pasted the Oinkmaster code into the Snort Global Settings page. Note that you need to enable Snort VRT in order to pass the Oinkmaster code. The next slide will continue with Snort configuration. To configure Snort, please refer to screenshots above. We selected Enable Snort GPL v2, Enable ET Open, Enable Open APP-ID, Enable APP-ID, Open Text Rules, and continued on the next slide. Continuing down the list, we selected Enable FEODO Tracker Botnet C2 IP rules, set update interval to 12 hours, set remove blocked host interval to 15 minutes, select remove blocked host after the install, select keep Snort settings after the install. When done, click Save. Now, let's update the available Snort rule sets. To do this, select Updates from the Services Snort menu as shown above, and this will bring up a page with a number of Snort rules. Click on the Update Rules button to update Snort to the latest date rule sets. Note Depending on how fast your internet service is, this update can take a few minutes. Also, on this page is the date time of the last update performed. Now, let's enable the interfaces that we want Snort to run on. Click on the Snort Interfaces tab on the Services Snort menu. This will bring up all the available interfaces for the router firewall. Now, click on the pencil to the far right of the interface you want to enable and configure. Under General Settings, click on the Enable Interface checkbox. We left the other settings on this page as their default values, with the exception of block offending host, which we will discuss on the next slide. Snort has the ability to block a host which has generated Snort IDS. So you can block both the source or offending host as well as the destination or target host. We choose to block only the source host. Click on the Block Offenders checkbox and then select SRC from the Which IP to Block drop-down list. Now scroll down to the bottom of the page and select Save. Note, blocked offenders will be held to the rules we applied earlier under Global Settings, General Settings. Now, select the Categories tab for this interface. Leave the default settings as shown above, and we will talk about the rule sets we apply on the next slides. Now, click on the Select All button as shown above. This will select all of the available downloaded Snort rule sets to load at startup. Before leaving this page, click on the Save button to save your settings. Let's inspect the Snort logs for any suspicious activity. To view the Snort alerts for any one interface, select Services, Snort, then Alerts from the drop-down menu. From there you can select which interface logs you want to view. As seen above, we selected the Untrusted Interface from the drop-down menu. As you can see above, there are a number of alerts shown for the Untrusted Interface. These alerts need to be reviewed and analyzed. Some of them may be nuisance alerts, and the rules that cause them can be disabled depending on the circumstances. As seen on the slide above, we have selected the DMZ interface for review now. Again, alerts needs to be assessed to determine impact and threat to the network. Now, let's take a look at running one of the exploits we ran last time and the Snort alerts it produces. In the slide above is one of the exploits we used against the web server. Let's look at the custom rules we created that will be triggered by the above exploit. Selecting Services, Snort, and then the interface settings for the DMZ will bring you to the DMZ interface setting page. From here, select DMZ rules to find the available rules categories. In the drop-down for category selection, select Custom Rules as shown above. Here, you can see the rules we created to alert Snort resulting from access to port 1099 or from any port to the web server. Now, let's run the Java RMI exploit again and look at the Snort alerts. Above, you can see we run the Java RMI exploit using Metasploit on the Kali DMZ computer. Notice that we were not stopped from reaching root access. Now, let's look at the alerts created by this exploit and our custom rules. Again, selecting the Services Snort Analyst page and then selecting DMZ from the interface to inspect, drop-down brings you to the page shown above. As you can see, a number of alerts were captured during the exploit. Notice the description corresponds with one of the custom rules we created, Viva and NAP for scan. You can also see that the source IP and destination IP are that of the Kali DMZ and web server computers. Date column reflects the date and time of the alert. The action, which is yellow triangle, indicates the rule action is to alert. The protocol of this alert is TCP, as defined by the rule we created. Source port and destination port are also captured along with the SID, which as defined by the rule we created. The SID is a unique identifier we assign to this rule. If you continue to scroll down through the alerts, you will come across another custom Snort rule that was triggered. This one was created to capture port 1099, which is one of the vulnerabilities of the web server that we identified last time. Now let's create a firewall rule to block FTP traffic from the untrusted network to the DMZ. Before we implement the firewall rule to block FTP traffic, let's check that we can FTP to the web server from the Kali untrusted computer. As you can see above, we are able to FTP to the web server. Now let's create a rule to block that traffic. At the top of the page, you can see our rule for blocking FTP traffic from the untrusted network to the DMZ. This is written in generic firewall rules syntax. And firewall rules are created by selecting Firewall, then Rules from the drop-down menu, and selecting the interface from which the packets must come from to match the rule we're creating. You can see our pfsense firewall rule on the left portion of your screen. On the right side of the screen, you can see that we attempted to FTP from the untrusted network to the web server. Notice that the action never completed and we were unable to connect. Hence, the new rule works. So it is important to understand that firewall rules are top-down. In other words, the top rule takes precedence over the rules underneath. Next, we will have a short demonstration of a firewall rule and a Snort rule. Let's have a short demonstration of a pfsense firewall rule and a Snort rule. First, let's do a firewall rule. I will start firewall, then rules from the drop-down menu. As you can see, this page shows the pfsense interfaces and the rules for each interface. So here's on the untrusted interface, you can see the rules that have been created. The top rule with the red X is grayed out because this is disabled for the purpose of this demonstration. The red X means that this rule is a blocking rule. As you can see, there are some actions over here, and then let's select the edit key and look at this rule. As you can see, the action on this rule is to block. An interface, it is blocking from the untrusted network. Then the protocol is IPv4 TCP. As we scroll down, we can see that the destination is DMZ network and the port range is 21 or FTP. So right now, this rule is disabled. So let's go over to our Kali Untrusted PC and try to FTP to the web server. Let's type the username, which is Jasper, and the password. So as you can see, I am able to connect to the web server from the untrusted network. So let's exit out of this FTP and enable our firewall rule and try it again. So let's uncheck the disable this rule checkbox and let's save it. And I will select apply changes to reload the rules. So this one will take a few seconds to reload the rules as indicated by the pop-up at the top of the screen. So we can just check it over here and we can see that it is done. Okay, so let's try it again. So as you can see, we are unable to make the connection to the web server using FTP. So the pfsense firewall rule we enabled is blocking all FTP traffic coming from the untrusted network to the DMZ network. So let's Control-C, exit out the FTP. Okay, so that is a demonstration of a pfsense firewall rule. Now let's look at the Snort rule. So let's go back to the drop-down menu and select Services and Snort. So previously, I created the rule under DMZ, and I'm going to go there right now. So under DMZ rules, I am going to select custom rules. So as you can see, I have created a few custom rules. However, only one of them is active right now, and which is this. So alert TCP coming from any IP address on any port going to the web server over port 80, which is HTTP. So what I'm going to do is go over Kali Untrusted Computer and open the Firefox web server, web browser, actually. So now let's type the IP address of web server, which is this. So notice that the web page did load. However, if I try to refresh it, or if I try to open another page and type it in the IP address of the web server, and then we will see that the page is not loading. And then let's close the page. And then let's look at the alerts. Actually, first of all, let's check the blocked. And we will see that, we're going to close this tab, and we will see that we blocked from the host, actual host block by Snort. And we can see the name of the alert, which I created, Viva NAP HTTP scan. So now the Kali untrusted PC is blocked from all access to the DMZ network. So now in our settings, it is blocking will only last 15 minutes, but you can clear it manually by clicking that red X on the block page. Let's do that. And we can also go over the alerts page and select DMZ. Now you can see the alerts captured by the role. And you can see the Viva Nmap HTTP scan was triggered multiple times coming from the Kali untrusted PC to the web server. So this concludes our demonstration of a pfSense firewall rule and a Snort rule. So thank you for watching. Next, we will talk about recommendations and closing remarks. In closing, we recommend Robot Parts Incorporated continue the maintaining and analysis of the pfSense firewall rules and alerts along with the Snort rules and alerts. Keep in mind that it may be necessary to periodically adjust the rules in the firewall and Snort. Also, recommend that you keep the Snort rules and pfSense software up to date. If desired, the firewall and Snort log files can be obtained for review and analysis. As your cybersecurity specialist, Saral Consulting is here to ensure your company stays safe in an ever-changing world. Please feel free to contact us for any questions you may have. Thank you for your time.